The subway system in New York City is horrifically bad.
Yep.
I have to say, there's a lot of issues I have with Washington, D.C., but one of them is not the D.C. Metro.
Not the subway, yeah.
One of the, if not the best run subway system I've ever been on. But that's not too surprising considering who makes calls in the city.
I mean,
think about what it would mean for the residents of New York City if they had a subway system that mirrored something like DC's. So what are your, or do you have a specific proposal as far as how you would deal with mass transit in New York City?
Yeah, there's a couple of different things. And I always talk about starting with the things that we can control. And the reality of it is that the subway in particular is a fight, not one that I'm not willing to take on. But in terms of starting with the things we can control, it's the above ground, it's the streets, right? So it's the idea of expanding bus routes, in all communities, but particularly in the outer boroughs, so that they can get access across town and that kind of thing. And I think that's a critical thing. In addition to bike lanes, and that our infrastructure plan is dropping next week. So I invite anybody to sort of circle back and check on the website next week. But I will say also, so the bus routes first. I've also proposed the idea of creating a public works program that would actually employ New Yorkers to help rebuild the infrastructure for the subway system, right? Because one of the serious problems with the subway is the infrastructure. And putting people to work and giving them jobs is just going to reinvest in the local economy. That being said, we know that the sort of big issues with the subway have to involve Albany and dealing with Albany. And so that goes back to sort of what I was talking about before in terms of, being willing to take on Albany and fight for what we deserve. There's been such a divestment in our system for so long. And yet, Albany hasn't recognized the fact that New York City contributes the bulk of, the revenue, the state revenue. And so it's time for us to get back some of what we're putting in. I'm hopeful because we've got a newly elected state supermajority. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to start to recoup some of the investments that we've made some of what we've paid into the state. But I'm also willing to fight for it. And I think that's critical.
That's awesome.
Just out of curiosity, who is your congressional representative?
Hakeem Jeffries.
And with that said, I think we'll have to talk about your plans depending on how this mayoral race goes. Because he's
planning the whole strategy.
I know. Where is this coming from?
Where's it coming from? Because the person who
we need help in Congress.
Because if you think that the person who currently is the biggest Wall Street bootlicker is powerful now, you wait until he is the heir apparent to Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah,
that's who they think.
That's what he's.
So
yeah. You're not the first person to raise that topic. I know.
It's something, it's something to,
and honestly,
just marinate on.
It wasn't even a got you. I honestly didn't know.
No.
And I have to say, because Jen is very, very close with Lauren Ashcraft and a number of other people.
I
actually
love Lauren.
I was not aware of anybody in particular, because I actually think strategy is one of the weakest things on the left. People actually don't know how to wield their power, and they don't actually know how to invest properly.
I don't disagree.
We're always looking at it strategically, not just what we want, because you might want a particular position, you might want a particular congressional seat, but that might not necessarily be the thing that is most likely going to happen. And so he's always like spinning about strategy.
Building that grassroots support network, building relationships where the relationships need to be built. I think a lot of people really need to look very closely at what's going on with Cuomo right now, because what this is showing is that most people deep down don't like the corruption. They don't like the entrenchment. They would fight back if they could, but the system is set up in such an unbelievably constrained way that you never have a chance to do it. And when an opportunity presents itself, hats off, like I said, to Ron Kim, because no one seems to really have, talk about guts. He's literally put his life on the line. He's kind of put it out there that, Cuomo's basically trying to throw me in the East River if he could get away with it. That's pretty serious business, but that's how power politics works, especially when you're talking about big city entrenched politics. And so I'm looking at somebody like Jeffries as you can kill the root before it has a chance to grow into a massive tree. That's only the only reason I'm looking at that.
The wheels are turning in there.
Yeah.
He's like,
So I would love for you to become, if not, like I said, if it's not you, I hope it's Andrew. It's one or the other. But if it isn't, then you always look at what other opportunities may be out there. That's all I'm saying. Not telling you what to do.
Stop it.
But
this is how I ended up in this entire predicament, was because 2 years ago he's like, Congress. And I'm like,
I appreciate the forward thinking and the strategizing. I definitely agree. I definitely agree that the left doesn't do as much strategizing and organizing and mobilizing as we need to do. At least not in the right ways.
And they don't. The truth is, they don't fight dirty enough. They just don't.
I don't even think it's about fighting.
You know what? It's about being a little bit more calculating. It's about being a little bit more on top of what needs to be done. And sometimes, unfortunately, that's ugly.
No, I think the difference is that there's a difference between fighting dirty and willing to get into the mud.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what I'm.
But yeah, I think that's really interesting, because I'm gonna test one of the things I've been thinking. So one of the things I think sometimes that the left doesn't do well, or what, is we don't actually coalesce, around one person or one sort of movement, right? We're almost so democratic that we pick each other apart. Whereas one of the things that the right is brilliant at, for better or worse, is they'll get behind that person, no matter who that person is, no matter how awful that person is. They're like they're ride or die for that person. Yep. Whereas we do.
Well, it's funny you say that, but is it really?
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.